Welcome to another jam-packed episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast, the show that brings you all the important news from the sports card hobby. We'll have some debates, opinions, new release schedules, and info. Plus, we'll also discuss the sports that so directly affect the hobby we all love. We'll mix in an occasional gambling tip or two, throw in some life stuff, and bring you great guest interviews from the hobby and sports dignitaries. And if you're good listeners, we may even give away a few things now and then. Now, here's the guy who wanted the cards and not the gum, John Newman.
Hello, Newman. Hello, Newman.
Hello, Sports Card Nation. Episode 29 here upon ya. Must be Friday. We're back every week. We're a weekly sports card podcast. We try to bring you content every week, and this week's no different than any other, but except we have a really cool guest on today, Nick Wosika from Minnesota. He's a freelance photographer, and you may have pulled some of his photography out of a pack he opened because some of his pictures have made it onto baseball cards. So we're going to talk to him today. He's been kind enough to share some time with us and give us kind of a behind-the-lens commentary of what it's like to be a sports freelance photographer. And it's probably not exactly what you envision. I mean, it's a really cool job, no doubt, but it's not all fun and games like I think a lot of people often think of it as. And, he's got a job to do. He's going to tell you about it and what it entails and some misconceptions. A lot of people think, they're all buddies with the athletes they shoot and cover, and that's not exactly really how it goes. So he's going to fill in a lot of those missing blanks. He's going to talk about a show that he's going to be probably launching soon called The Card Show. He's got a trailer out for it, and I tell you what, it's going to be very different than anything that's ever been done before. And just based on the sizzle trailer, I'll be in on that one when he starts doing them. So Nick's been kind enough to give us some time and let us behind the lens. I think you'll find it more than very interesting, so definitely stay tuned. He'll be on later in the show to share those thoughts with Sports Card Nation. Of course, we're going to talk about the big topic in the hobby, some of the bad stuff going on, trimming, grading, shill bidding, all that stuff. It's out there, and it's not breaking news anymore, but there's been some revelations and statements made by the parties involved, and I'm going to read those and kind of give you again my current 2 cents on where that situation is and may be heading. Going to announce the winner of the $25 break credit from Deep Fried Breaks, one of our sponsors. Glad to have them as part of the family, and they're giving away a break credit this show and also another one on episode 31. So every other week we'll give a break credit away. This week will be $25. We'll announce that winner later on in the show. So without further ado, with that being said,
And here we go.
So it's time to give away the $25 break credit to Deep Fried Breaks. Blake and Deep Fried Breaks doing a great job breaking old and new. Really hitting the Bowman pretty hard. They're doing Topps Finest at the moment, but they do a lot of different things. Check them out if you haven't already. Give them a follow. And so we ran this contest for the $25 break credit, and how it works was I ran a post on Twitter. To enter, all you had to do was follow the show, Sports Card Nation Podcast, and Deep Fried Breaks, and retweet the tweet I posted. So 3 things. Follow both of us, retweet the tweet, and you're entered. Now, I wrote down everybody who retweeted it, and I randomized the list. Almost 50 people entered, and whoever was at the top, I would go one by one, and I ran. The dice roll was 7. We randomized it 7 times, and the rule is I would start from number 1 and check if that person followed both accounts. If so, they won. The second person on that the first person on the list did not follow both accounts, so we went to the second person on that list. His name is Chris Reinders, and he qualified by following both accounts. So Chris Reinders is the winner of the $25 Deep Fried Breaks break credit. So congratulations to him. I'll tag you on Twitter, and I'm sure Blake will contact you and set that up to claim your prize. We're going to do another break credit, $20 this time, 2 deep fried breaks, and we'll do it the same way. So look for that post shortly. Retweet it. Make sure you follow both accounts so you're eligible to win the prize. So once again, congratulations to Chris Reinders. He's going to have a $25 break credit to use at Deep Fried Breaks. Deep Fried Breaks. Active breaks all the time. Gearing up for a huge month of June with great new releases. As friendly and knowledgeable about the product as there is in the business. Super fast shipping too. Go check them out and tell them that I sent you, and Blake will be glad to give you a promo code off your first break. Check out Deep Fried Breaks, deepfriedbreaks.com. All right, it's time for What's Crackin'. All right, before we get to the hobby release schedule, which is what I usually start off with, let's get the hot button topic and my thoughts and stuff out of the way first. We all know the current debacle with the trim altered cards making it through PSA, BGS, PWCC, Marketplace being implicated, having a role. They also apparently participated in the act of shill bidding, having someone bid up a price of an auction with no intent to purchase it just to make someone else pay more money. While it's hard to prove, there's some reported memos between the CEO and employees to get those things done. I got to be honest with you, if all this stuff is true, pretty sloppy. Not that I condone illegal activity, but if you're going to be a criminal, you've got to do a better job than that. And, they make shredders and different things like that. And just real poor handling of that kind of activity. So, a lot of bad stuff going on. PWCC finally they've kind of been quiet, sort of a ghost town approach, but they finally have made a statement, which I will read here. And it reads, "We are obviously very aware of the issues surrounding the cards submitted to us by Gary Moser. First, we want to apologize to all those who have been affected by the purchasing of trim or altered cards. We are not disappearing or burying our heads in the sand about this. Next, we are presently working with both PSA and law enforcement to ensure that all affected cards are brought to light and this information makes its way to our customers. We understand that we are responsible for our part in this mess and will do all that we can to make it right in connection with the Moser submitted cards, as well as other submitters who may have altered cards of which we auctioned. We understand how difficult it is to be patient through this process, but we are working through this as quickly as we can at the direction of counsel and the appropriate authorities. Finally, in response to these recent findings, we are no longer selling any Moser submitted cards. We are sorry for the trouble that has occurred and will work to regain your trust." And man, do they have some work to do. It's going to be very difficult. My thoughts on the statement. I think it was, obviously a deliberate attempt to distance themselves between those activities. They really put it all on Moser and made him out to be the ringleader, and almost took the stance of them being duped like us, so to speak, and had no idea. And while we expect that to be the statement, I'm not buying the whole thing. Yeah, sure, you're working with your counsel and your law enforcement. That's what you're supposed to do. And why do you think they're working with legal counsel? Because this is not good. So the statement isn't earth-shattering or really nothing. Everything I'd expect to be in a statement like that is in there. It is what it is. They've got to do some serious damage control. They're scheduled to appear at the National at the end of July. I don't know how that can still happen with ongoing events. And this thing, folks, is just in its preliminary stages. I think there's going to be more people named. I think more people are going to testify or tell things they know from the inside. So I think this has just begun. So I'd be shocked if you see PWCC Marketplace at the big show, the National Sports Convention. And frankly, even if they wanted to show up, I'd have a pretty good hunch that the powers that be at the convention would probably tell them, maybe sit this one out this year. We don't need the negative publicity and people here for the wrong reasons. The show's setting up to be one of the better ones as most years, and I don't think they want that potentially tainted with a lot of controversy and negative attention brought to the show. So it may be a situation where the National itself tells PWCC thanks, but no thanks. Stay home, sit this one out. We don't want you at the moment. So that storyline, it should be interesting to see how that unfolds as well. Now, there's not, Moser, PWCC, they're not the only ones involved. And if you heard my last show, I really pointed the finger even more so at the grading companies. They're the ones that these cards got through. They had an opportunity to catch these cards and reject them, and that didn't happen for whatever reason. And there's two sides of the whatever reason coin. Inexperienced graders, naive, didn't catch it, let it go through. Or maybe they were, some people believe they were really, really in on it, and they just gave those cards a grade, knowing full well they were trimmed or altered. And the third side of that coin, although I don't know many three-sided coins, but play along with me. The third side of the coin is, if it's not inexperienced graders or they're in on the scam, how did these get by these graders? Whether how trained or not, how does a card that's going to be smaller because it's trimmed, what kind of technology are they using that's still possible in 2019? So I like to see them address how they're going to prevent this in the future. It's obviously too late to put the genie back in the bottle on this current state of events, but how do we know this isn't going to continue to happen? So they issued a statement of their own, and I'll read it to you and give you my thoughts afterwards. And it reads as follows: PSA is aware of recent hobby message board activity and is conducting its own investigation into the matter. We take consumer protection seriously, as evidenced by the thousands of altered and counterfeit cards that we reject each year. Our ongoing investments in grading and holder technology and long track record of working with law enforcement to eliminate fraud from the hobby. PSA processes more than 2 million cards each year and will not let isolated acts from a few dishonest actors deter consumer confidence in our brand. We will act against anyone who violates PSA's terms and conditions by knowingly submitting altered cards for authentication and grading. While our actions will be conducted privately, please know that the impact will be felt by those attempting to mislead collectors for personal profit. As with any financial transaction, if you are unsatisfied with your purchase, contact the seller to initiate a refund request. If the seller is unknown, you may send the card to PSA for review under our financial guarantee of grade and authenticity. PSA is well versed in combating fraud, and we have addressed these issues in a professional and direct way for nearly 30 years. After all these years, our hobby is stronger than ever. Rest assured that PSA will not let the actions of a few have any lingering impact on the hobby or the PSA brand. No allusion to how this occurred, how these cards got by their esteemed company. No mention of protocols added to prevent any future episodes. And again, it's another attempt from a company to kind of put distance between themselves. And if you heard me say the initial, how the statement started, sort of laughable that they kind of just made it out to be recent events on the message board. This is more PSA. You better wake up and realize this is more than some message board cowboys uncovering some stuff. This thing has reached well past that now. I've heard feds are either involved or very close to being involved. There's lawyers involved. So this isn't just a message board brouhaha. This is off that page and escalated to DEFCON 1. So, they can downsize it or try to throw water on a large fire by using the term message board, recent message board. We're past the message board stages. So PSA, got to tread lightly here. They're one of the leaders in this industry, in this market of grading, which is huge, and they could lose some serious footing here, as well as Beckett. Beckett's recently got in trouble as one of their employees has been discovered to have the most black labels and black label percentage based on cards submitted. So they're not squeaky clean either. There's all sorts of stuff happening in the hobby. And as someone who does participate in grading, enjoys grading, likes buying and selling graded cards, this is troubling because it's going to put a negative light. And even though any cards I submit to a grading company, I know I haven't trimmed or altered myself. The fact that it's making, and for PSA saying the message board stuff, this thing is being covered by national news outlets, media, social media outlets, news media online, news media on air. This thing has gotten to a whole nother level. So you can word it PSA as recent message board allegations. You're well past message board allegations. I'm sure you're speaking to your counsel that you have on retainer. I don't know how much you talk to counsel on retainer to the level you are over message board fodder. So this thing is not done by any stretch of the imagination. And I think more's going to come to light. I think there's people who haven't said anything that will say something. They're just waiting for when that's their time to do that. And some of those statements are probably going to be more shocking as well. So this has only just begun, as the Carpenters used to sing. And, it's unfortunately a black eye on the hobby. But like a lot of train wrecks, there's a lot of people watching, commenting, posting, retweeting, and this thing's not going away. anytime soon. And even if it's all straightened out and eventually fades at some point into the background, it's always going to be kind of remembered as 2019, the year of some transgressions. So that's my 2 cents. There's a lot of trust that has to be gained back. Can it be? I don't know. Time will only tell. And again, I think there's more information going to get onto the public side that's going to open this even more up like a serious wound. So this thing is just started. In some not so negative news, Fanatics has bought Steiner collectibles out. So not sure what that impact's going to have. I know Steiner traditionally is higher priced than Fanatics, so maybe that means some more stuff will be available at a lower price level. All right, let's cover the hobby release schedule for the week. Already out. If you're listening to this podcast, it's already on the market. Topps Finest Baseball 2019 and 2018-19 SP Authentic Hockey. On the Finest Baseball, it's traditionally that thick stock chrome product. Looks like it's got a little more color this year from the spec sheets I've seen. Always a pretty popular brand. Again, breakers are going to have a good time with this one as well. On June 7th, 2018, Leaf Trinity Baseball. 2019, Leaf Flash Football. 2019 Panini Luminance Football. And on the 12th, we have 2019 Topps Series 2 Baseball. 2019 Topps Major League Baseball Sticker Collection. 2018-19 Panini Noir Basketball. 2018-19 Topps UEFA Museum Collection Soccer. On the 14th, 2019 Panini Victory Lane Racing. And 2019 Leaf Ultimate Sports. So, good amount of releases in the next 7 to 9 days. Looks like double digits by my counting skills. So, a lot of products to choose from. You'll have some opportunities in various sports to get into some breaks, open some wax, pull some hits.
We love our listeners. Without you, there is no us. We care about your opinions and feedback and invite you to reach out to us on any of our social media accounts. On Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast, Twitter at SportsCardNati1, or email the show at sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. We don't ask for much, but if you really like the show, give us a shout out. Tell your friends or give us a follow on our social medias. If you enjoy the show, please give us a positive review on iTunes or any of the platforms you are listening on. Thank you.
All right, real excited to have my next guest on the Sports Card Nation podcast. His name is Nick Wosika. He's from Minnesota area. He's a freelance photographer, but he's doing a few different things. He's into cards as well, and he's got a different sort of relationship with those two for what he does. So I saw what he was doing. I reached out to him to see if he'd come on the show. He's gladly agreed to do that. So I'm excited to have him here. And so welcome, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
So I spoke to you before we went on and got a little bit of the background, but for those listening, if you want to give them kind of what you do, maybe a little bit of your background, how you got into it, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm a freelance sports photographer. Been doing photography now for almost 20 years, and like when you're growing up and you take the classes in middle school or high school, your photography classes are usually electives, right?
Yeah.
And I take the class, and I'm like, oh man, the photos aren't turning out how I envisioned them in my head, right? And so we put a pin in that, go to college that whole bit. And the first thing I did when I got paid, that first real job, you get that paycheck. I'm like, well, I'm going to go buy this camera and do this thing I always wanted to do.
Yep.
Same thing. and it's the photos didn't turn out the way I wanted to in my head, and I'm like, oh, what's going on here? I'm like, you know what? This was like pre-internet YouTube video is going to teach you everything. So it's still film, it's not digital. And I went back to school at a technical college here in Minnesota, and it was a 2-year program. And the way it worked was there's 2 tracks basically. It's your portrait and wedding photographer, and then there's your commercial side. Mm-hmm. And I've been at the school for a year, and I'm like, look, I want to shoot rock stars and professional athletes. This is what I want to do. Can you just offer one class like this? And I'm like begging them, and they're like, nope, it's beer bottles and glamour shots, right? So I'm like, oh, okay. And so the next day I got home from school, and I emailed anybody I could find within, driving distance from where I lived at the time. And I was like, look, this is what I want to do. Do you need an intern? Are you hiring? Can I follow you around? Can I carry your bag? Like anything, right?
Yeah, get your foot in the door.
Right, absolutely. And out of the 50, I got one email back from a newspaper down in Fairmont, Minnesota. And the guy's like, oh, come on, Dan. Bring some samples, and we'll have a talk about it. So I drive down there, and I didn't even have a portfolio at the time. I literally showed up with a manila envelope and 10 photos. I'm like, here you go, sir. And he looks through the photos. He's like, oh, these are pretty good. I want you to go shoot this volleyball game tonight. I'm like, all right. And then he hands me this bag, right? And I look in there, and there's, I'd never shot a digital camera before. And there's one of those in there. And there's like $10,000 worth of equipment. I'm like, oh, boy. So I look in this bag, and I'm like, you got a manual for that? He laughs and hands me the manual. And he gives me the directions. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I go to this volleyball game. I shoot the volleyball game, after I read the manual, of course. And then I get back to the newsroom, and they're like, oh, yeah, just put the photos in the computer and do Photoshop. Well, I've never done that before. So somebody had to come and teach me all that. And, I threw all my selects, the photos I thought were good enough in this little folder. And next day in the paper, they ran 2 of the photos. And the day after that, he offered me a job. And then a day after that, I quit going to that technical college. Yeah. Because I had found what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So from that point on, that has always sort of been my mentality of, my life is based on personal policies, and, the answer's already no, you might as well ask. So, go find what you want to do, ask, and you never know what'll happen. And, if you don't know how to do it, figure it out along the way. And that's what I've been doing ever since. Yeah.
And I mean, that's a great story. I mean, you literally learned on the fly. You almost self-taught. You had some help, but you didn't let not knowing something deter you from ultimately doing what you really wanted to do. So that there's,
even now, it's like if people call me, like, you know how to do this? Yeah. Even if I don't, you're going to figure it out. It forces you to learn new skill sets. Because here's the deal. The minute you say no, people stop calling.
Yeah, you're right.
So I'm like, oh, you're going to pay me to figure this out? Heck yeah, I'm going to do it. Let's go.
Yeah, and now, like you said, with Google and YouTube, you almost can figure out almost anything, short of surgery. And even that's probably on there. It's just a little bit more difficult. The degree of difficulty goes up. Right. But I mean, that's a great lesson right there, Nick, is that don't let, maybe not knowing be a deterrent, you know what I mean? To just keep going, and in today's day and age, you can learn rather quickly.
Right. Well, that's the thing too. It's like you learn it on the fly, and I don't know if you're out there looking for a job now. These people are looking for unicorns. You got to have 17 skill sets and this, that, and the other thing. It's just like, all right, well, here we go. Yeah.
Well, you obviously did well enough. You're doing it. You're full time. How competitive of an industry is it? Are freelance photographers friendly with each other? Is it kind of you look at each other like, oh, I'm competing against him? How would you describe that camaraderie, if I can use that word?
Well, absolutely. I think it depends on where you're at. Here we have a really strong photo scene. Like, everybody gets along with each other super well. It's not competitive. If I can't get a gig, or if I'm not able to take something, I'm like, hey, you should ask him or her. We pass each other work if we can't take it. So there's not a lot of that going on around here. I remember when we shared earlier that, I got to be New York City photographer for 4 days. It was a little different when I was out there. Yeah. The spots were at a premium. I went to the 2 Mets games, and one of the ladies there didn't want to give me a code to the photo room, and I'm like, look, I got the same credential as you do. So I'm allowed to be there. Can't you give me the code to the room where my stuff's at? So she's like, well, I don't know you, and you don't come around here that often. I'm like, well, yeah, I get that, but I'm still credentialed same as you, so I think it just depends on where you're at and sort of, the culture that goes along with it.
Yeah, and the individual. Some people are probably just bristly in nature, and it is what it is, and you're not going to win them. They're just going to be who they are, and you got to unfortunately deal with them when you run into those sort of people, like the kind of the story you just mentioned. So
right, yeah, it happens, but I'm sure people came here, they probably get that sort of vibe from a couple people too. But overall, I think Minneapolis has a very strong, welcoming, kind of laid back, cool scene as far as photographers go.
Yeah. Now, there's probably people, if I've been to what's, seems like a million sporting events. I've seen the photographers there. I'm sure others have too. And there's probably people, and I'm not picking on those people that probably think, man, that's the coolest gig in the world. They get to watch the game like me and get paid. And they think you're watching the game in the same vein as we are as a fan of a sport or of a team. And, I wanted to get your perspective to kind of illustrate it's not exactly that at all. You're doing your job. You can't take a moment and necessarily put the camera down for a period or 3 innings or a quarter, because that might be a key pivotal moment that you need to capture to tell the story through the lens. And I don't think people, really think about it or see it that way. So I wanted to get your perspective and to illustrate that while it might be a cool job that a lot of other people would love to do, it's still a job, and you got a responsibility to the action that's going on in front of you.
Right. Well, you're 100% right. I'm not gonna lie, it is a cool job, and I love it, and I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't, and I did.
Yeah.
So, I remember I was in, I believe, 1st or 2nd grade, and I got to go to the Metrodome for the first time to see the Twins play back in 85, 86, somewhere in that era.
Yeah.
And I remember walking into the Metrodome the very first time, and just sort of, how you get those chills, and the hairs in the back, and you get excited. I still get that feeling every time I make a turn to go into an arena, on a field, or down to the ice.
Yeah.
And it hasn't changed. I don't get excited about a lot of things, but I do get excited about this, right? I love doing it. But at the same time, it's still a job. So you got to leave your bias at home, your fandom at home. You can't cheer, you can't yell, you can't do any of that. If the players are doing their job, I'm there to do my job too. And my job is to capture what's going on. And you're right. If I take a second off, I miss something. Because if you're seeing it happening and you're not pulling the trigger on that camera, you're missing it.
Yeah.
And, after that jump shot at the buzzer or the field goal in overtime, that's when the magic really happens, is that celebration. You remember Wide World of Sports?
Oh, yeah.
Thrill of victory and defeat. Those are my favorite photos.
Yeah.
Because that's the real human emotion. Because a game, you shoot hundreds of games, right?
Yeah.
So these things start to look like, oh, there's a guy hitting a ball. There's a gal hitting a jump shot. There's a big save, glove save. But it's the emotion afterwards. Either way, that's my favorite thing to capture.
Yeah. And again, I don't think people realize, they think you just probably take the shots, those last shots of a game winner. They don't realize you've got to tell the whole story. It's not about showing up in the 4th quarter or the 9th inning, and you don't know when there's going to be a pivotal moment at any given time. So you know what I mean? You can't cherry pick like that. And I think you explained it great. Do you get butterflies maybe like an athlete would even before an event, even as a photographer?
Yes, but it's not out of nerves. I remember seeing this interview with Ringo Starr once, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, whenever he went on stage, he wanted to go out there like Frank Sinatra, all cool, and just roll up to the mic and just, be Frank. But he couldn't, because he was so excited. He always just run out there and turn into Scrappy-Doo. Hey, I'm Ringo Starr, blah, blah, blah. He's all nuts, right? And that's not because he's nervous, because he's a Beatle.
Yeah.
But it's just because you get that excitement in you. And I think that's where mine comes from. It's never like a big spot moment of nerves or, where like, oh, am I good enough to be here? Or, am I going to get it? Like, you get what you get, you do what you do, but I'm always excited about the work I get an opportunity to do.
Have you ever, I'll ask you this, what's been, it's probably hard to narrow it down to one, but what's been your favorite event or that you've covered on the job?
Super Bowl, when I was here in Minneapolis, that was fun for all you Philly fans out East Coast. That was a good one for you. Yeah. Not so much the 2 weeks prior with my Vikings, but what are you going to do? Frozen Four, like anytime there's a trophy awarded, so like I don't care, like high school hockey is really big here in Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
It's on the championship Saturday. There's 19,000 people crammed in the Xcel Energy Center. That's probably more than your 4 or 5 teams combined in your Sun Belt in the NHL.
Yeah.
So that just speaks to how important high school hockey is. Like, I've covered 7 state tournaments in a row, and that's one of my favorite things to do is high school hockey.
Yeah.
So there's that. Just anytime my first time at a new venue is always super cool, because, I'm at Target Field, 30, 40 times a year, and everything's like white noise. But if you go to Yankee Stadium, you're going to walk every nook and cranny and explore and see things and maybe get these weird angles that you won't take the time to do that in your own park. Yeah. It's when you go on the road, you do those sorts of things. So those are the things that, I like to do when I travel.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me into another question. Let's say an event, a game starts at 7:00. How early do you have to be there?
It depends. It's a minimum of 2 hours.
Yeah.
So for a baseball game, like I want to be there for batting practice, just to kind of get some of that stuff beforehand to get some art on file. Hockey games, it's a little different. Basketball's a little different where you have assigned spots. And even some baseball stadiums too, but for the most part, baseball is just roam around, find a spot, be cool to each other.
Yeah.
Hockey, like a hockey game, you have to check in with the team photographer, let them know who you're there for. If you have any special requests, like I need to get this person or a coach shot, because there's 6 or 7 cutouts around the ice typically, and they'll assign those spots. But, I'm there 2 hours before and probably another hour and a half after the game, editing and sending in my selects to the wire service.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, like you mentioned, some things you have a spot where you're told you're assigned to. On the ones you're not, does it ever get feisty between yourself and another photographer, like to get a prime spot or what you perceive as a place you want to be at, or not really?
Not really, because the things that you're not really assigned to, like, the Super Bowl we were all assigned, but like a typical NFL game, there's so much room.
Yeah.
And there shouldn't be any problems. The same thing depending on the baseball stadium, too. Like, there's so much room in those wells. Like, I'm going to be over here the first 2 periods, and I'm going to go on the first base side, and then I'm going to be on the plate. And then, you know what? I might get elevated and walk around the concourse and get some different angles. So there's never been any, I've never really seen any brouhaha over spots or anything like that.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean it doesn't happen? Absolutely not, but, I haven't seen it.
Well, man, that's just, like I said, there's probably a lot of people who love to do it. I'm not a photographer, so I would be very bad at it. But as a sports fan, it would really be good to cover it in that perspective. So, have you ever been caught up in? You ever probably not, but I'll ask anyway. Where you almost forget, I got to take this shot. Have you ever been close to being caught up and almost going back to being a fan and I gotta click, you know what I mean?
No, it's always work. I've never had one of those moments where I just forgot where I was type of deal. But no, I'm always kind of tuned in and when you're watching a game and there's pivotal spot and you're like, oh, this is going to happen, and you're kind of anticipating or you want to predict what's going on. I'm running scenarios in my head. Yeah. All right, if he hits the ball here, this guy's going 2, the run will probably try to come down, maybe it'll be a play at the plate, or, you just rely on sort of your experience playing. I coach all these sports. I have kids, and I coach hockey and baseball, and I played all these sports since I was 4. So it's I take that with me, and it sort of helps me as a photographer too, because that's probably the most important thing is to know the sport,
Yeah, well, you bring up a great point. Being a former athlete, still a coach, you're like you said, you're thinking 1 or 2 moves ahead, and it probably gives you an advantage over maybe another photographer that doesn't have that same background. You're one shot ahead of them potentially.
Right.
So people probably don't even think of that aspect of it when they see what you're doing. That there's some thinking going on here. It's not just I just click a bunch of pictures and that's you're anticipating. Hey, they might man on third, one out. They may drop a bunt down, try to win the game like this, and or whatever the situation might be, or they might try to steal second to take the force off here and stay out of the double play. And there's probably a lot of other people in your field of work that maybe don't think on that same level. So it gives you sort of a built-in advantage there.
Right, and then it helps you at first, but there's a lot to be said for experience. There's people that have been doing this a long time, and they rely on that too because they've seen it happen, so it kind of goes both ways. But I think if you know the sport or anything you're covering, it could be a play or a concert or, 4th of July parade.
Yeah.
You rely on your experience to guide you through covering that event.
Yeah. So I know you said you obviously you've covered everything from professional. You mentioned how big high school hockey is, obviously in the state of Minnesota, and obviously there's a lot of families watching their sons, their grandsons performing on that stage. You get a lot of parents or grandparents. Hey, did you get any of my son? Can I buy? Can I get those? How do I get those? You get a lot of that.
Yep. So and it's different. The Minnesota State High School League here doesn't allow the selling of photographs from the state tournament. So my stuff's for editorial use only, and then it just sort of sits there, and they'll see something on social media, and I'll get the email, hey, we want to buy the photos. We're going to I'm like, I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't risk my reputation and the ability to cover this event that I absolutely love to make a few bucks on selling you this photo. So if you're really passionate about it, contact the high school league and change the rules, because that's what I'm waiting for. But I'm not going to go behind their back and
risk what you do and not being allowed to cover an event that you care so much about.
Right.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I just wondering how much of that you actually, get, especially at the high school. I coach high school sports, so I know how parents are and how that I know how that goes. So.
Well, I do always follow it up. Well, you can hire me for future events and this, that, and the other thing. So I'm not going to let that opportunity go to waste. But, I shoot a lot of youth sports, and the parents love it because you can make these little kids look like pros, and it's way more laid back. It's super easy because it's not as fast, and the access you can get, is way better than at a professional event unless you're the team photographer. So I really enjoy doing all of the youth sports as well. So.
Yeah, and that's awesome from that level, to the pro, and you enjoy them all for different aspects. That says a lot about you, Nick. I think as a person, that what your passion for the sports itself and for people,
Right. Well, I appreciate that. Well, and you said you coach you, so you played. Do you have any pictures of you playing youth sports? Other than the team
I have not as many as I'd like to, but I do have a few, that buried somewhere here. But every once in a while I'll pull them out and I'll show my son, who's a football and baseball player himself, who's starting his own college football career here in a couple months. So we have our own little debates at we both played football and baseball in high school, and I tell him I was a better baseball player than he was, and he was a better football player than I. So I said
everybody wins.
Yeah, I said it's a push, So. Yeah, and I mean it's cool, And sometimes when you look back at the photos, I realize how old I really am. So it's sort of slightly depressing, but it's nice to look back and think about those memories and go back to those times, and reminisce. Right. That's always a fun thing to do. Especially when you can't do it anymore, or at least not in the same vein. So.
Right. Well, at least you have a handful. I was the size of an ant in all the ones my parents took. It's all my kid. I've had a camera in his face the minute I met him. So he's got fat heads of himself on the wall, and making rookie cards, and he's got these oversized cards all over the house, and his friends think it's the coolest thing. He don't care anymore because it's just white noise to him.
Yeah.
But his friends think I'm cool.
Yeah. Well, I think too now, Nick, and you could probably attest to this more than me. I think even on the high school level, even not just high school level, even on the youth level, Pop Warner, Little League, there's more coverage and more pictures being taken than years ago. I mean, years ago, I'm old, when I played, it was Kodak you know.
Right.
You took the picture and the picture literally came out of the front of the camera. It wasn't obviously a great quality photo in today's day and age. A lot of times they're blurry and like you said, you can't even tell that's you. I think that's me, so, so it's the industry's come a long way. And I think, with technology, there's just more photos of today's sports being taken just naturally.
Right.
Used to be film. Now everything's digital. Everything's a file. So it takes up a lot less space. You can take a ton more photos and just pick the ones, the better ones or the best ones, and that's a good thing. I'm not even saying that in a negative tone. It's just that's where we are, technology here in 2019. So we have in my house, we've got like photo albums, like 8, 9, and they take up. They're in like a hutch drawer, but they take up quite a bit of space. And today's photo albums are on a flash drive, or so it's completely different way of how photos are stored and processed and the whole thing. And it's I think it's obviously made it even simpler, and
right.
Like you said,
it's easy to use and it's speed. It's easy and it's fast.
Yep, and you even said like you can edit it. You couldn't really edit it back in the old days. It was the shot you took or got was pretty much it. So let me ask you this: you do some you're obviously a freelance photographer. Has your work appeared on baseball cards or any kind of sports cards?
Hockey and baseball. So that's basically where my passion lies in all of this. One of the main reasons I picked up a camera all those years ago was, like I told you in the very beginning, it was rock stars and professional athletes. And the professional athlete side was I wanted to get my photos on trading cards. And I've been collecting in one shape, way, form, or another since 1982. Baseball, hockey, football, basketball, everything. Yeah. It gets your ebb and flow of everything. But when I picked up that camera, that was always a goal of mine, is to land cards, whether it be baseball or football, hockey, whatever. That's my goal. And even now, that's what my main purpose is. Like, I'll get your editorial stuff, but once that's done, I'm trying to get baseball cards. I'm trying to get hockey cards. That's it.
Do you know what shots are going to be on a card, or do you open a pack, let's say, and like that's my photo, or do you know ahead of time?
I will not. So I have no contact with Topps. So they get their stuff off the wire service. So when I'm shooting these games, I put it up there. They either have a photo editor or one of our designers, go through and pick the photo. So that's the way it works for baseball. For the hockey stuff, I do freelance work for Upper Deck. And they'll call and say, hey, are you available for these games? And I'll say, absolutely. And then they'll send me a list of who they want photos of and who I should go heavy on and, who they need right away. And that dictates my workflow when I show up to the arena.
Yep. So would it be correct that kind of Upper Deck, you're kind of more aware, like this is going to be on a future release product for them, where Topps, you don't necessarily know?
Right. Well, I have a stronger, it informs me that, yes, I have a better opportunity with Upper Deck just because I know they're looking at my stuff right now, but I still don't know until release day. Yeah. So I'll watch breaks. Oh, that's mine on YouTube, So anybody out there who's a breaker, slow down. I know you like to rip through the comments, but I got to see if that photo's mine. So ask your people out there to slow down.
That's it. That's really interesting. So have you ever opened an actual pack of cards and like, holy crap, I this is my photo. I took this shot.
Yeah, well, by that time when I'm putting together another video for my YouTube channel and for the card show deal, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, I'm sure. But that's basically talks about this. Like, how do I know? When do I know? Where do I get my cards? Do I send you cards? And, that's going to be in the future video. But if I'm getting a box of cards, I already know that I have stuff in there, and I usually just I'll sit there and watch my kid open them.
Yeah.
Because I want him to pull them.
Yeah.
I get a big kick out of that. Then you get your 101s, and there's, jersey patch auto deal. And I'm like, that's a mortgage payment. I ain't buying that one.
Yeah.
So that's happened a few times. But, that's how I collect now. I buy the cards, or I'll, go rip wax of product that my stuff is in, and I love it.
Yeah, that's neat. I mean, I got to think doing what you do and to see your work, on an actual trading card, that's just, I mean, do you remember the first one at all? I
do. It's on my mantle. It's a Jose Barrios from 2017. It's a Topps Now card.
Yeah.
And, I was just going through eBay looking at stuff, and I'm like, wait a minute, that looks like mine. And I didn't even know my stuff could land on cards at that time.
Yeah.
I was just tooling around, being a nerdy card guy. And I'm like, oh, mine, that's mine, right? And then afterwards, there's been more cards and more cards and more cards. So I was just like, I look around, and when I go cover these games, right, there's 4 or 5 other wire services there, and they're all fighting over for that same nugget of getting that newspaper or the magazine and that whole deal. Like,
yeah.
That's fine, but I looked around, I'm like, I'm never going to beat those 3 to anything, and I really like doing the sports cards thing, so I'm going to get you what I need to do to be here, but now I'm going to put my focus on, studying baseball cards. Like, what are they using? What are they not using? Are there certain photos that they like or they're picking for these cards? And, it's sort of shaped the way I shoot and cover a game, post-editorial style, and, I love doing it. And the thing about it is, those people who are fighting over that editorial work, you get your picture in a newspaper or a magazine, like, that's going to get recycled the next day.
Yeah.
Or it's going to get over in a corner. But, like, to me, the trading cards are much more lasting. Like, do you know anyone that's going to throw out a Mike Trout card? Because I don't.
No.
But that's, even if it's his 5th year base set flagship, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still going to a book or binder. It's going to go in a top loader or one touch. Like, these people are going to hang on to it forever.
Yeah.
And it's just, to me, that's much more lasting.
Yeah, your work will live on through generations,
Right.
And like you said, the print media or newspaper or even online,
Right.
very rarely do people go back too far after a while, and it is what it is. And like you said, cards will be passed down from one generation to the next. It may not even be passed down. It may be at a card show and someone else buys it. Now it's in their hands, and it'll trade hands in various fashions, whether it be from family member to family member or collector to collector. I mean, that's, I never even thought of that aspect of it. That is pretty cool when you really think about it.
No, I'm just starting to run out of room. Like, everybody's got a man cave, right? And
yeah,
my son's name is Cooper, so we call it Cooperstown. Like, ownership apostrophe S Cooperstown.
Yeah.
And we have to change the stuff out seasonally. Oh, if it's hockey season, we take down all the baseball stuff, throw out the hockey stuff.
Yeah.
And it's almost like curating a museum down here at this point. But I love coming down here and just sitting here, because this is a room I wanted when I was 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you do that.
Now, are you ever allowed to take your kids on to work with you, so to speak, or is it not?
Yes and no. Like, they're not going to be able. I don't have the juice to give my kids or my family credentials and their safety concerns and all that stuff. But a lot of people will always ask me, like, "Oh, what's your favorite card?" Or like, I really don't have one, but they're all tied to, like, memories and stories. So, like, when I was in California and I landed my first travel card, like, my whole family was in that crowd watching that game.
Yeah.
So, and my brother and I, he takes his daughter and I take my son, we go to Milwaukee every year and watch a couple of games there. This year we're going to go to Kaufman in Kansas City, but I always work one of the games.
Yeah.
And when the cards come out, I land cards from that game. It's just another keepsake to go along with the ball they may have snagged, or, the cup that your ice cream comes in. But I like to give the kids the cards to throw in their memory box, because to me it was just all about that experience of going there with them, capturing the moment, and then being fortunate enough to have it land on a baseball card or a hockey card.
Yeah. Have any of your kids expressed an interest maybe to do what you're doing when they get older?
My son's already been published in Let's Play Hockey and online here. I do the Upper Midwest High School Elite League. It's like a fall, right before the season hockey league. It's like invite only. tryout deal from kids all over the Midwest, and they play for 2.5 months. But I'll bring him, and I'll give him a camera, and he'll follow me around, and he'll shoot. And if he gets a good one, he'll show it to me, and then I let him edit it, and I send it off, and he's been published already. So I don't know if he wants to do this full time, but we had a really cool conversation not too long ago, and this was kind of the antithesis of like why I wanted to do the card show deal. Was we're sitting there, and he's like, Dad, if I'm not good enough to play sports, are there other jobs you can do?
Yeah.
And it really never dawned on me that these kids don't realize, like, you could be a general manager.
Yep.
You can be the communications director, the president of baseball operations. You can be, an athletic trainer. You can be a video coach. You can do what I do. Like, you could be a social media person. Like,
yeah.
I never knew these jobs existed when I was younger. And it's a very mature question for him to ask. But I'm like, you know what, buddy? Let's not worry about this now. You just wait until time or talent or tragedy takes these sports away from you, because I want you to play as long as you can, and we'll worry about this other stuff later.
Yeah.
Like, you're 8. Why are you worrying about jobs right now? But that's just
it's. I mean, I don't know him, but it sounds like he's an intelligent kid. He's thinking, he's not just thinking about in the moment. He's thinking,
right.
Hey, down the line. That's I think as a dad, and I am one. That's, to me, I'd be even impressed. Not that he's even thinking that further ahead. But like you said, you said it best, is right now, hey, just keep playing, and when we get to that bridge, we'll cross. We'll cross it.
Right, but it's like you can do whatever you want. I mean, look what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's what I always wanted to do. Is like, you make it happen, you work until it happens, and nobody hands you anything, but you grind it out, and 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years later, you're like, I'm a pretty cool spot right now, because you know what, I earned it.
Yep. Well, I guess one question I'm going to ask you, I think I'm sure it's been asked of you before. I think anyone listening would probably want the question asked. How much interaction do you have with the players on the professional level, whether it be, NHL or Major League Baseball or NFL? Do you get to have any, or is it difficult being what you're doing and you're kind of locked in?
Absolutely zero interaction. I think that's a huge misconception, other than the fact that everybody thinks you're rich, because we're not. These are jobs, and we keep doing what we do on their passion projects and things like that. So, yes, is there people out there making tons of money doing this? Yeah, but it's a small percentage. So that's misconception number one. And misconception number two is that, like, we're all buddies with the athletes, and there's very little of that. They're there locked in. They're there 2.5 hours early too, warming up and training, and going over film and things like that.
Yep.
So I have probably zero interaction with these guys. But I think that's you're right. It's a big misconception, but it's just they're doing their job, I'm doing mine, and then we go home at the end of the night.
Yep. No, and I that's what I figured, but I wanted to ask you, and that way people listening to this interview can understand that as well, because I'm sure there's quite a few people that think like the game's over, you put the camera down, you go in the locker room. I bet you there's a lot of people that kind of think the photographers also do interviews too, and that I don't know if if the answer is zero or never, but I think that it's a high percentage where that's not the case,
Right.
So
your small town newspapers and things like that, they're probably doing double duty where they're taking photos, but they're probably stronger writers and photographers.
Yeah.
It's really rarely vice versa, because it's real easy to be a bad writer. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's why I take pictures. I can't write. But it's unless there may be some exceptions to it. Like team photographers are also going to, obviously going to build rapport with the players, because they're doing the team photos, and they're going to be on, when they're visiting the hospitals and doing their charity work, or anytime there's a contract signing. Like, I'm sure team photographers have relationships with the players, but where I'm at, just as a freelancer, grinding it out, is zero interaction with the players.
Yeah. So let's talk about the card show, your project you're doing. I off the air talking to you, I called it a vlog. I don't know if that's a fair representation. I'll let you, describe, what you're doing. You kind of touched on, Nick, kind of how it came about a little bit with the conversation with your son and stuff. But I'll give you here this segment. Talk about it, how it came about, future plans, where you want to take it, and that sort of thing.
Right. So I have a buddy here. His name is Jared Christie, and he does a show called Destination Polaris. They've been on TV for like 10, 12 years. And they drive like those Razor RTVs. And he's like, I'm going to Argentina this week, and I'm going to drive this thing around the desert. Now I'm in Hawaii. And like, that's his job.
Yeah.
And I sent him an email one day, and I'm like, look, dude, I know because of who you are and what you do, you probably get 100 of these emails a day. But this is my idea for a show. And I pitched him on it. It was essentially, you know what? I'm the sports photographer that's trying to get these photos for the cards, and every week we go to a different stadium, different sporting event, and baseball, I'll cover one game as a member of the media, so I'm doing my job trying to get the cards, the photos or the artwork for the cards, and then that second day I'm there as a fan, so I'm going to hang out with people tailgating, and I want to find the longest standing season ticket holder, and I want to meet the organ player that's been there since 1948 playing the tunes in between periods. Like, I want to tell those stories. Like, I was in Kaufman. When I was at Kaufman 2 years ago, met a guy up in the dining hall, and he was like, I was just a ticket taker, and then I worked my way up, and you should have seen this man shine when he told me he got to drive the golf cart around with George Brett in it for his retirement game. Yeah. Like, that's a chills moment. Like, there's cool stories like that all over the place.
That people don't even know about,
Right. Because they think it's all on the field. But, I want to talk to the people that get the field ready, that chalk the lines, that, who sold more beer here than anybody else, and then I think there's a venue for that. When you look around, and we have celebrity chefs on TV, and you have these people that'll redo your house, and people that go through storage lockers. I'm like, why can't there be a travel show based on sports? Because, like, whenever you travel somewhere, I'm always like, oh, where are you from? And they'll be wearing a ball hat. You've been to this stadium? And we sit there and have a 20-minute conversation about all these parks we've gone to and what's next on the list and who you'd like to see. Like, these shows could act as like a travel guide for that. And, probably move a lot of product, too, if the right card company got involved. Yeah. So there's that, too.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, with everything else being done, I mean, I don't know how many more, like, demo house shows you can do where they read, there's only 20 million right now. And like you said, this is a big industry, a big hobby, and it gives a different perspective that hasn't been broached upon yet. And I know my interest is piqued, and it'll be something I can speak for myself. You'll have me watching every episode. So, and I'm pretty sure, Nick, that there's going to be a lot of people that feel the same way as me, and to see it from a different perspective, that you don't get that kind of behind the scenes or feel from, and people love that stuff, and whether it's sports cards, or whatever genre, if they're a fan of that genre, they're gonna definitely be interested in that, because you just can't get that at any given moment, anytime you want it. So
and I want to know the work that goes behind the flagship release. How long is your design team working on that? How many meetings did you have? What were the ideas that got shot down? Why did you go with this design? Because if you read the comment section, anytime somebody puts anything out, somebody hates the design, or they don't like the numbers, or this, that, and the other thing, like, somebody worked their tail off to put that together. Yeah. Like, it's art, and you got to look at that as that. And I know it's still, money-based, because you want to buy and sell and that whole deal. But, like, for me, it's purely artistic and enjoyment, you know? So those people are artists to me. I want to tell their stories. How did you end up in this chair that you got to design the Topps flagship? Yeah. You get to do Topps Fire, or, you design all the Young Guns. Like, how'd you get there? For my son to see this, what does he have to do if he wants to do this someday? I want to tell those stories. Yeah. And let's be honest. Some of those people you're talking about, at one time had your everyday job. Maybe they worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken,
or, they bag groceries at a supermarket. And it's a great illustration in that case to say, they did that at one time and look what they're doing now. So they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like anyone else. And with a little bit of luck and some hard work combined, and that's where they've gotten to. And it'll be a great inspiration and illustration to anyone that sees that no matter, what you're doing at the moment, there's potentially bigger and better things on the horizon for you.
Right. Well, and full disclosure, this was also my having to have the best summer vacation ever. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there, if you know what I mean.
Nothing wrong with that. I can't blame you there. So, again, Nick, I appreciate your time. I know you're very busy and sharing some of your behind the lens perspective, if you will, and some of the stuff people probably don't even realize, and hopefully now they do. Where, if anyone wants to follow you, the baseball card show and all that, I'll give you the floor here to give out any kind of social medias or URLs or what have you.
Social media, Twitter and Instagram, it's at Nick_Wosika, Wosika. And then you can find me on YouTube. That's just Nick Wosika, and then NickWosika.com. I have videos. I have the trailer for the sizzle reel for the card show. It's about 2.5 minutes long. But then, I wanted to see if I could do this. So I started putting these little sort of videos together maybe a year and a half ago. And from hockey games, from baseball games to WNBA games, that just sort of shows that experience of what I go through, my approach to the game. And, hopefully it was just seeing if I could really pull this off.
Yeah, well, I watched that 2.5 minutes, and when it was over, I'm like, I wanted more. I think I hit play again, hoping like magically some new stuff would happen, So
well, then we did it right. It's better than being like, is this guy going to shut up? I need to shut this off.
No, not.
So I think if you leave him wanting more, we did all right.
Yep, no doubt, and I think other people are going to feel the same way. So. I'm hoping you keep doing that, and I look forward to watching it. And I love you to come back on, and we'll promote it once it's full bore, and we'll get you some promotion and get the word out there, and no doubt about it.
I'd love that, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, once again, Nick, thank you. We'll have you back anytime, and keep shooting. And hopefully a lot of stuff makes it on the cardboard, because that's got to be awesome.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
For over 25 years, Newman Sports Cars has set the standard in customer service in the hobby, including same-day shipping. They've added trading card supplies and wax products to their already impressive arsenal of rookie cards, game-used cards, autographed and graded cards. Check their fully searchable website out by Googling Newman Sports Cards or go to bit.ly/Newman Sports Cards. Give them a follow on their social medias on Instagram, Newman_Sports Cards, and on Twitter @NewMSportsCards, or give them a call or text at 315-491-0239. Newman Sports Cards, for all your hobby needs.
It's time for From the Box Seat. Lots of news in the sports world. Let's start with baseball. The two free agent holdouts have new homes, it looks like. Craig Kimbrel was going to the Cubs, and the report has just surfaced that Dallas Keuchel will be Atlanta Brave. So those two teams in the pennant run are getting some reinforcements. Rumors of a juice ball still abound, and yesterday Max Kepler hit 3 home runs. Now, Max Kepler is kind of known as a power guy, so that's not necessarily earth-shattering, but when Travis d'Arnaud on the same day hits 2 home runs in the same game, I think that confirms that there's something off with this Major League Baseball. It is definitely juice. So thanks to Travis d'Arnaud of the Tampa Bay Devil Rays for confirming what a lot of people sensed, that this ball is juice.
9.5 to go in regulation time. Oh, and there's Bozak, and flipping down to the ice and shaking up on the play. Slow to get up is Achari. Meanwhile, it is Perron trying to feed one in front. They score! And are being shown a replay of Achari tumbling down. Well, Bozak takes the legs.
That was the St. Louis Blues game winner from Game 5 in the Stanley Cup Finals over the Bruins. They have taken a 3-2 lead in our one game from hoisting the cup. But the main headline, the main story has been the officiating here in the playoffs. Now, even on that goal to win Game 5, there was a tripping call report, that the Bruins wanted, not called. I saw it. I got to say that I didn't think it was that bad. I think there was a little acting on the player's part. I wouldn't have called it. But the officiating, besides that play, has taken kind of the limelight of the playoffs more so than most years. So, unfortunately, it's taken away from the games. I still think the games have been great. The Bruins look like they were in control of this thing early in the series, and the Blues have said, not so fast, my friend, in the words of Lee Corso. So 3-2 the Blues. They're one win away from hoisting the Stanley Cup. And so Game 6, will this thing go to Game 7? Will the Bruins force a Game 7? We'll have to wait and see. Carson Wentz just got paid more, extended his contract to 2024. Deal is worth up to $144 million with incentives. $107 million is guaranteed. And I know he's taken, some abuse in the media, if he's really the guy that can lead him back to the Super Bowl. There was a time period there, as you remember, where there was even debate if they should go with Nick Foles and let Carson Wentz go somewhere else. But apparently the Eagles brass are saying, no, Carson's our guy, and we're going to stand behind him, we're going to pay him, and he's going to be here for the long term. So Eagles are hitching their wagon to Carson Wentz. I think that's a smart move, as well as Nick Foles performed there, who's now moved on to Jacksonville. Wentz is the younger guy. He appears like he most likely will be a franchise-type quarterback. And you can't find these guys as easily as you think. So they're sticking with their guy. He's battled some injury issues. That, to me, is the bigger concern than the play on the field. I think when he's on the field, he's a very good quarterback. It's just, is he going to be injury-prone? Is he going to deal with injuries throughout this contract or not? Can he stay healthy? That's the big question mark. Well, the Toronto Raptors are proving me wrong. I had picked Golden State in 4 games. First 5 games, then I altered my prediction to say 6. Could still happen, but right now, Toronto's leading this series 2-1. They look pretty good. KD is still out, hurt, and will not play in Game 4. And things are going to get really interesting if Toronto wins Game 4. I'm going to still stick with Golden State, but they definitely look vulnerable from the super team rolling over people. Toronto's giving them grief, including beating them in the Oracle. So we'll see how this plays out. I'd love to see Toronto beat the Golden State super team just for that fact, and make Kawhi Leonard's decision even a little bit more trickier if Toronto was to win the championship. Then whether he stays or not becomes a little more difficult, at least on paper. Reports have him going to the Clippers as the favorite, especially if they don't win the title. But I'm kind of rooting for the underdog in here, and there's a lot of people. I'm starting to feel like maybe Golden State's the underdog. I won't go that far, but things just got interesting with Toronto taking the one-game advantage here going into Game 4. Also in basketball, the Nets made a move trading Alan Crabb to the Atlanta Hawks. And what it really does is it frees up some cap space for the Brooklyn Nets to potentially make a run at 2 max type free agents. And rumors are they're looking at Kyrie Irving and KD to make their own version of a super team, adding them to the parts they already have there, which is a young nucleus. I'm originally from Brooklyn. I'm not a huge NBA guy, but obviously I would be a Brooklyn Nets fan. I don't follow them in the same vein as I do my other sports teams, but I'd say I'm a Nets fan. So they made the playoffs this year, and if they can add 2 pieces like that to the puzzle, it could be just make them instill a further run and potentially contend for an NBA championship. So the NBA offseason is going to definitely be interesting. A lot of free agents are probably going to hit the market. There's going to be a lot of money thrown around, and we'll have to see who winds up where, and then we can determine who will be the favorites for 2020. The Sports Card Nation podcast website has been revamped. It's more interactive with a live chat feature. Also has forums and message boards. And now the front page has upcoming podcast news and events, and also a yearly release trading card calendar. So you know what's coming out when, so you can target your next purchase. And we've made it very easy to get to. Just type in bit.ly/SportsCardNationPC. That's bit.ly/SportsCardNationPC. But another one in the books, episode 29, is official, signed, sealed, and delivered. We hope you enjoyed the show. What a great interview with Nick Wosika, and again, giving you kind of a perspective from behind the lens that you probably definitely learned a few things. Unless you're a freelance photographer yourself, you definitely learned a few things. I know I did. I found his insight and information enlightening. Learned a lot of things, that stuff I didn't know, or kind of assumptions I thought was the way it was, and it wasn't. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I want to kind of give my closing thoughts on what's going on in the current state affairs of the hobby, with all the scandalous stuff and PWCC and Moser and the grading companies and what we talked about earlier. While it's not good, let's be honest, there's more good in the hobby than bad. And yes, it's disappointing to say the least, but if you're running what you do, and whether you're a dealer, a collector, a buyer, a hobbyist, a breaker, if you're doing stuff above board in the right way, then you just got to keep on going and do your thing. You can't let a few bad apples ruin the bunch. Yeah, it stinks. Yeah, it gives a black eye to the hobby we're in, but you can't control others' actions. And anytime there's serious money involved, there's always going to be those kind of people that try to skirt the system, scheme the system, and that's in any industry. This isn't related just to sports cards. People in Wall Street insider trading and break rules all the time and get arrested and go to jail and that sort of thing. So whatever industry it is, accountants bilk this, bad accountants bilk their clients out of money and unfortunately that's the way it is sometimes when you're dealing with money and large amounts. People will do not so nice things to get more of it, and it is what it is. You got to just keep going, enjoy the hobby. You do the right thing. You can only control your actions. You're only responsible for what you can do and can control. So do the right thing. Do things above board. If you're a trader, send your end ASAP. If you're a buyer and you bid and win something, pay it promptly. If you're a seller and you sold something and you're paid for it, get that thing on its way to its destination ASAP. Be a hobby advocate. Help people out. Promote the hobby. If someone needs some information, be a steward of the hobby. That's the best thing you can do to win the day and bring the hobby back to the positive side. So recently we've had an onrush of followers, follow our social media accounts. Our listens have increased once again, and very happy where the show is. Never in really my wildest dreams ever thought it would happen. And I'll go a little further. I don't want to say I didn't think it wasn't possible, but 7 months in or just barely 7 months in to get the listens and the amounts and the thousands that we are and the followers in the thousands, it happened a lot faster than I even thought it could. And honestly, I wasn't even sure if we get there, but we have. We're doing real well, and it's one thing I always say, we're doing well because of you. It's easy. I can just turn this mic on and talk to it, and no one has to listen to the show, and I could do that every week. It may, or no one listening, it might be kind of futile, but that's not the case. And it's thanks to you giving your time, letting us be on your airwaves, in your headphones, coming out of your smart device or whatever have you, and we think about that all the time, and we don't take it for granted, and we're very grateful for that fact. So we hope you stay with us. If you're enjoying the show, we hope you tell some friends, give us a shout out, give us a plug, spread the word. The best advertising is the kind you can't buy, and that's word of mouth. So we really do appreciate you being with us. So as always, I like to close the show out with my favorite musician, Billy Joel's famous last words.
Don't take any shit from anybody, and I mean it.
You've been listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast. Join host John Newman next week as he gives you another jam-packed episode of all things related to the sports card hobby. And a little extra fun, too. Don't forget to check out the show on Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast.